Matthew, good evening. Good to have you here on NDTV. We'll, of course, talk about India's tour to South Africa in a bit as well. But first up, I wanted to concentrate on the series that's coming up, which is the ODI series against the Sri Lankans. Now, the Lankan ODI squad is quite different from their test squad. The captain is also going to change. Do you see the tourists putting up a tougher fight, perhaps, in the ODIs?
I think probably likely that India will dominate again, mainly because you've just got such a young-looking team. And even though Team India is a young team, I still believe it's got some old hands, you know, Rohit Sharma being captain and also MS Dhoni. So you get that really sort of solid base to a performance, whereas Team Sri Lanka, once again, another change in their captain. They just can't seem to sort of settle at the top, and I think, you know, the sides that are the best in the world, they have the most solid leadership. So whilst Sri Lanka are searching, India are almost the complete opposite.
Right, let's talk about the Indian captain now, Matthew. Virat, of course, deserved a break since he's been playing all three formats of the game, and his workload, of course, has been absolutely immense. But do you think his absence will hurt Team India in any way in the ODI series against the Lankans?
Look, it's one of these arguments that the best players in the world play all formats of the game. There's no question that Virat is one of those. But at some point, he has to be rested. He has to, you know, regenerate. I think his focus is very much on, you know, building what has been a great-looking fast bowling unit for India, probably the best, I reckon, in a decade, and looking to prioritise South Africa. So something's got to give. I mean, he's playing IPL cricket, T20 cricket. You know, you've got the ICC events that sort of have sat either side of this epic 14 test match domestic series that we've seen here as well. So at some point, you've got to back the faith of the squad and back the fact that you've got to give your champions a rest.
Right. Now, Matthew, India, of course, this team has been doing phenomenally well at home. But do you see this team becoming genuine world beaters and doing consistently well abroad as well? And I'm asking this in the context of India travelling to South Africa next.
Well, it's like every side. And we were no different. You know, the champion side that I played in coming to India, it was very different when we arrived here. Different techniques, you know, a different sort of mindset as to how it is that you can, you know, dominate within a country that's almost the exact opposite to what you've been taught. And just take one element of that. Someone like Pujara, for example, whose strength is being able to bat for a long period of time and a patient performer as well, but also is very, very gifted and tempted to hit the balls outside off stump. And when it comes to South African conditions, where he's really covering his stumps and looking to play absolutely straight, but then using his hands, it becomes a risk. You know, so it's just horses for courses, and it's challenging to come to an environment, and you've got to have the time to be able to prepare as and when appropriate. And these guys don't get that time. I do feel a little bit sympathetic to modern day cricketers.
Absolutely. And picking up from where you left off, Matthew, what's your take on the scheduling of back-to-back series that we are seeing these days in international cricket? The turnaround time between the end of the Sri Lanka series for India and the beginning of the South Africa tour is hardly a few days. How do teams really manage to do well abroad without enough preparation time?
Look, the scheduling issue is one where you can only fit, you know, 24 hours in a day. You can't create time. The Future Tours program doesn't allow that time, and then you get other, you know, tournaments like the IPL that sort of squeeze in on top of an already busy programming. So I just think it's one of those situations where you have to be real about the program. You're not going to get advanced lead-up games into tournaments. That's the way it's going to be. Maybe the preparation actually should be, you know, in a country like India, to get imported soils, you know, to build and construct wickets that do simulate, you know, overseas conditions, so that, you know, you can start to prepare without the pressures and demands of being away and then having to catch up on preparation.
Right. And in that context, Matthew, do you think this is perhaps India's best chance of breaking that jinx and winning their first test series in South Africa, just going by the balance of the team?
I agree that this is India's best chance to win away from home. One, settled leadership. Two, they've got a fantastic batting lineup. It's really who to squeeze in a lot of ways. Rohit Sharma's, hundreds in the last couple of Test matches have been, one of those problems to have. Shikhar Dhawan's fantastic form, KL Rahul, and now Murali Vijay coming back in. And then your Ajinkya Rahane is really the only one that's got some question marks hanging over his head. But, I'll back him in 100% as well. So really solid batting lineup. Dual spinners that are actually outstanding players as well, Jadeja and Ravichandran Ashwin. Selectors are going to say, well, who are we going to pick? You've got a pretty solid all-rounder as well in Hardik Pandya. So, you've got the luxury of being able to, subject to conditions, play an all-rounder or 2 spinning all-rounders and then 3 quicks. And then you've got the luxury of Bumrah as a 4th quick. So, all over the squad is very, very solid.
Right. One final question for you this evening, Matthew, and this is a question that I've asked Mr. Sunil Gavaskar in the past as well. Do you think we've reached a stage in international cricket these days where it's very difficult for a touring team to beat a home team? Not too many touring teams these days manage to win big series abroad.
Yeah, look, stats don't lie that, the at home versus away percentages are in the favour of those that, being away, being at home, I'm sorry. So it's over 50% in a lot of cases, and subcontinent's mostly up around that 60% ratio of home and away wins. But, the reality is what's going to break is having no time to prepare. That's a huge factor in all of this. The good thing is that India has been targeting and building up to these away series now for quite some time. If nothing else, the conditions weren't here were not like South Africa, but at least in their heads they were thinking about what combinations and permutations of players that they would build and construct when they toured abroad. So the fact that they're thinking about it even before getting on a plane is a good sign. This is the time, I think, where Virat Kohli can really, nurture these players, can really understand. He loves to play positive brand of cricket, which I think suits abroad conditions. So for mine, this is a great opportunity for India.
Right. Overall, of course, things looking very good for Team India. They are firing on all cylinders. Matthew Hayden, thank you so much for joining us this evening on NDTV.